Verse 600. As there is nothing generating, there is no birth, free from the faults of the philosophers. I talk of this conventionally, according to the theory of concatenation, and this is not intelligible to the ignorant. The previous few verses have been about hitting home the realization of no birth, and this is free from the faults of the philosophers. And as I've mentioned before, we are all philosophers. We all have a philosophical understanding about our place in the universe. Whether we are explicit about that or not, whether we're clear about that or not, we all have a philosophical understanding. We must have. We must have. It shapes who we are. And that philosophical understanding can be broadly described in terms of whether it's been religiously influenced or scientifically influenced. Although I tend to think the scientific understanding has been religiously influenced. And by religion, here I mean the religions of the Middle East that have dominated Western culture. Because they give us a story that at one point there was nothing, and then there was something. So from no birth came birth. This actually has a very limiting effect on our relationship with the world. It tells us implicitly that the natural state of things is nothing. That it took some weird singular event to bring all this into being. And our origins lie way back in some distant past, some distant unknowable past. So we take our essence, we take what we essentially are and throw it as far away as possible into the distant past. That's where our origins are. And spiritually, this is no good. As enlightenment practitioners, we get directly in touch with our origin. Our origin is here. All of that stuff which puts our origins into some distant past is nothing more than a story. And some will say, but it's a story backed up by scientific evidence. But science is also a story. It's a story created by the mind. It's a story which assumes the reality of a physical external world. So it takes delusion as its starting point. And to be fair to science, it does poke against the walls of that delusion. But why start with delusion in the first place? As enlightenment practitioners, we begin with enlightenment. So, by realizing the significance of what's described here as no birth, we are practicing enlightenment, and we are free from the faults of the philosophers. And this is free, and this means we are free from the limitations of stories. Stories of how we came to be. Stories of our origins being in some distant past. All these stories originate in consciousness. These stories wouldn't exist without consciousness. And consciousness is what is hearing this. Consciousness, if you're looking at the video, is what is seeing the video. Consciousness is what entertains thoughts. Consciousness is what creates stories. Consciousness is what sees patterns or creates patterns. And this leads us into the next part of this verse. We're branching off here into another angle. I talk of this conventionally according to the theory of concatenation, and this is not intelligible to the ignorant. And what this means is, about not being intelligible to the ignorant, what it means is, this is another opportunity to practice realization. And we do this by looking into this story-making faculty, to see how all these things which we take to be true are actually the result of stories. And what sort of things do we take to be true? We take an external, permanent, physical world to be true. We take a me here, wandering around this external world, to be true. So, no birth dismisses the reality of the world. This theory of concatenation undermines the story of me. And how does it do that? What is this theory of concatenation? I think I'll leave that till the next video, which will follow on shortly.